I'm Leonard Nimoy. Join me for In Search of
An Argument.
Oh.
This is In Search of an Argument. I am Jim Gentili. I am here with 3 out of the 4 of my compadres. I've got Shelly. I've got John. I've got Peggy. I don't have Beth. She is somewhere in the middle of the United States.
I think she's in Chicago, but just not here.
I don't think she's in Chicago right as we speak on
Oh,
Sunday morning, June 28th. I think she spent
Okay.
the night in Topeka, Kansas last night.
Which is basically the suburb.
But by sometime later today, I expect we'll be able to say that she's like Dorothy in that she won't be in Kansas anymore. Pinch hitting for the fabulous Beth is the fabulous Ian, who has been away from us for so long. Ian,
too long.
You've been traveling.
Yes.
Where'd you go? When did you get back?
I did a little tour of Europe. Started off in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam, to see my youngest son. His wife, unfortunately, was not there. She was in Mongolia. Weird. Ooh. Yeah, she does a lot of. She's a barrister and she works for. I don't know. Do you know what? I don't even know who she works for, but she does a lot of human trafficking assistance and goes training with the army and police.
Hopefully, she's helping the people who are being trafficked and not the other
not assisting the
how to do it.
Just to clarify there.
So we had Stephen and I had a lads' weekend, and then I flew to the UK to see my sister and some old friends there. And then on the Thursday, Friday, I flew to Switzerland to see my eldest son and his family and my granddaughter. And then I got back last Monday. It was fun.
Ian, part of the reason you've done all that traveling is because what other major life event occurred to you since we last talked to you?
Retirement, which I was really worried about, but it's not a problem.
If you don't have any major financial stresses,
yes,
retirement is the greatest thing that can ever happen to someone.
The funny thing is, I'm so busy and the days are flying by. It's like, how did I even have time for work? Honestly, it's like incredible. I just didn't think it would be this way. I really was. I am or was institutionalized. You know, I'd worked for Lily for 37 years. And that's all I knew. And it took me a couple of weeks after retirement to start panicking about, oh, my laptop, I need to check. Have I got any emails? Seriously, it was like, I didn't actually think it, but I felt it. You know, it's like, oh, I don't have to do that anymore. And now, strangely enough, because I was really passionate, I love my job. I don't like talking about it now. When people from work call me, it's like, I don't want to hear it. And that is just not how I was. So, yeah, I don't know who I am now, Shelly, but here I am.
So what advice do you have for recent retirees?
Or future retirees.
Or soon-to-be retirees.
Well, one of the epiphanies I've had is the sense of my own mortality. You know, when I look at life and all the things that I kind of want to do, and I've got no big ambitions other than to really have a lot of fun. There's not many years left when I'm actively going to be able to have a lot of fun. You know what I mean? It's
I've been saying that since I was 20.
You got about 10, 15 years of like, oh gosh, I should have done this sooner, I think. You know, that wasn't enough time, which is a million miles away from where I was 6 months ago. I now feel like I left it too late.
Tempus fugit.
Yeah.
The aperture has opened as to what is possible in life. And you're like, oh, wait a minute. All this stuff I was looking at was this, and now it's wide open. And it's wow.
Think you'll do any work at all or while you're retired, or are you just going to go cold turkey?
Absolute cold turkey. I mean, I'm not opposed to volunteering somewhere, but I don't want money from anybody because then I'm accountable.
You'd have to show up. You'd have to do something.
Right. Yeah, okay. So I don't want that.
All right. Very good. Well, welcome to the world of retirement, and glad to see you're enjoying it. And while you're retired, have you been able to watch a lot of World Cup action?
Good transition, Jim.
Yeah, I've watched enough of it. Obviously, watching England.
He has his England shirt on, by the way.
I know
That's right.
I of course noticed.
If you're not watching on News Channel 8, he has his English shirt on.
We flatter to deceive, and will again this time. We're always going to win it. It's always our year. I think we're fourth in the kind of favourites. We're fourth favourites, so we should go pretty far in the tournament. But
yep, you're high on the list. You're definitely in the top 5 among the favorite countries according to the odds makers. England has only won it once.
That's right.
What year was it? Do you know, Ian?
I do.
What year?
It's the year where the Celsius temperature and the Fahrenheit temperature are exactly the same. 1966.
There you go. Excellent.
19 degrees Celsius, 66 Fahrenheit.
I will tell you, just as a young boy, it was not the year I was born, but I turned 10 that year. The first time I ever heard of the World Cup was in 1966 because there was a big to-do because England won it, and they had never won it before. They have never won it since. And that was the first time I ever heard of it at all. Because when I was a kid, we did not really play soccer. I played maybe a couple of times. I mean, we'd heard of it. It was this, from our perspective, is this weird game that people in England played instead of playing real football. This was, I was 10 years old at the time. But yeah, now, of course, American school kids play soccer all the time. And that has something to do with changing. What about when you guys, now, John and Shelly and Peggy, you're a little bit younger than I am. Did you guys play soccer growing up when you were kids? Shelly said no.
Wasn't a thing.
Nope,
I did.
Wasn't a thing.
John?
It was.
No.
Okay, but Peggy said she did.
Yeah, because Peggy also had sailing in school.
That's true. She had sailing, so she's an exception.
I played on through the YMCA, and it was an all-girls team. I lived in Indiana, and then when I moved to Grand Rapids, we actually got on a co-ed. There was a co-ed team. It wasn't through the school though. It was.
How old were you?
5th grade, 4th grade.
It's great.
Yeah, it was
Favorite
fun.
sport?
I broke my wrists playing soccer.
You hurt your wrists.
Broke it. One.
You fell. You fell.
No, I was the goalie, and
somebody hit the ball that hard that you actually.
Yes, and I stuck my hand out like this to block
You're not
it.
supposed to do it like that.
Well, I had boobs. I had new boobs coming in, and this was when I was on a co-ed team, and a guy kicked it so hard, and I was like,
That's
"There's
so
no
unfair.
way I'm catching that thing." So I went like this.
Yeah, but I think you're allowed to use but you're supposed to use your arms, not like your hands.
And it broke my wrist.
Ouch.
Knock on wood, it's my only broken bone.
Because you want to absorb more of it if you're trying to absorb it all with your.
I love soccer for little kids because it's basically just running around and kicking a ball, and that's really all little kids need.
And
wear them out.
Except for the occasional header causing a concussion, it's relatively safer than American football for sure.
Well, now it's a huge thing in schools. I mean, they never had female.
It's really big.
They never had female soccer in public schools, and now they do.
And now it's year round. Now it's you pick one sport and you play it all year, and most kids are picking soccer. It's true. That's for sure.
I think it's more like most parents are picking soccer for their kids because of the safety stuff.
Well, I mean, anybody who picks American football is out of their gourd.
Well,
but whatever. That's a whole nother. I want my child to grow up and then
American
commit
football
suicide.
player who's going to be marrying Taylor Swift apparently in Madison Square Garden on July 4th. So
is that happening?
Apparently, that's the rumor. Madison Square
Madison
Garden,
Square
July
Garden.
4th.
What were you going to say, Ian?
I think I prefer that to whatever Trump is doing on July 4th myself, personally.
What's he doing?
I have no idea. I'm sure it's like a cage fight or, insulting some of our allies or belittling some people, whatever.
Sure.
The American pastime is with Trump.
Punching some poor refugees.
Yes,
and
finding some poor people and kicking them.
Ian, you coached your kids, didn't you?
Yeah.
From what age?
They were about 7 or 8.
Yeah.
And all the way through to 17, I did them.
That's great.
Wow. So you did a lot of coaching.
Yeah. I was coaching. I was refereeing. It was the whole village.
It's great.
Marking the pitches out, you name it. A lot. What I was going to say before, by the way, is you just touched on women's American football, soccer, but you are world champions at it. You're really, really good at it.
I was going to say, that is a good point, is the American women as a national team have had great success. They've won the Women's World Cup several times. They've won the Olympics several times. And I think they are the current reigning champions. So compared to the U.S. men's team, the American women have had tremendous success.
Thank you, Peggy.
Yes, thank you, Peggy. And also the U.S. women's sailing team, of course.
Boating.
Now, can any of you tell me what is unique about this 2026 version of the World Cup?
It's the most corrupt event in world history.
That's an arguable point. This is a empirical point.
It's the biggest. 48 teams.
First time ever, there are 48 different teams.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
Anybody care to guess how many teams there were in the field, say, from 1930 to 1978?
24.
16. It only went to 24 in 1982, and it only went to 32 in 2002.
And when did Africa get let in?
I don't think Africa wasn't let in at any point, but the first World Cup was actually only 13 teams because it was held. Anybody know what the year the first World Cup was?
1932, is it?
1930.
30.
Which was the first full year of the Great Depression. So of the 16 teams, 3 of them ended up not coming, primarily thought to be because of financial issues. So it was only 13 teams. The U.S. was there, but the first winner of the World Cup was the home team, which was...
What was that question again?
Who was the winner of the first World Cup?
The winner was Uruguay.
That's right. They were the home team and they won.
Ian. Oh, this is going to be fun.
Very good.
Jim and Ian show. I want to keep going, Jim. This is awesome.
Who's won the most World Cups?
Brazil.
And of course, Brazil, again, this goes back to my youth. The most famous soccer player in the world from my youth to my early adulthood was Pelé.
The fact that I know that tells you something.
He was probably the only soccer player people who weren't fans of the sport knew at that time. They'd never heard of anybody. Probably didn't know any other soccer players. But he was a world phenomenon. He first started playing for Brazil as a teenager. And during his time with them, they won 3 World Cups while he played for them. That's part of the reason why they won more than anyone else. Go ahead.
Can I ask a question about, Messi is still playing and he's old, right? Is he like...
It's 38, I think, something like that.
It's pretty old, isn't it?
Yeah.
Pretty old.
It is.
He's still very good, obviously, right?
Yeah.
He's having a great tournament so far, anyway. He scored several goals so far, which...
So Garrett, my eldest stepson, he was a big soccer player, and he's now 29. So I've been hearing about Messi for at least 14, 15 years, and I was surprised. I haven't really been following it this year, but you hear the headlines and exciting things like that. I also heard something about there's and maybe this is everybody knows this but there's things inside the balls, the soccer balls, that are like monitors or whatever you want us to call them, so you can know how hard they're kicked, if they hit the goalpost, all that sort of stuff, and it's sort of controversial. Is that a thing that people think it's ridiculous? Like, we don't need all that data, and are we going to do that with football soon? And
football is coming. They're going to start having football so that instead of having the chains to measure the first down, you'll be able to tell because there'll be an electronic thing in the football itself.
Seems like low-hanging fruit. Not a big deal.
Baseball
easy to do.
Is on the path to having balls and strikes called by machine, as tennis has done the and in calls by machine for several years now.
And what Peggy did you read that makes it all controversial? Because they get those measures anyway. It's just more manually.
I guess I don't
collected.
know that people just said it's not necessary, and do we really need all that information? Which is like, do we need it?
But we're already getting it though.
Sports is
not
a
like
wash in more and more data. Every sport now is more and more analytics and.
But
data.
were we getting the data about how hard it was?
Probably not as accurately as you're going to get it once you have that stuff implanted in the ball itself.
Estimate it, maybe.
Yeah.
But it's also the amount of time it takes to review some of these things, because there's a sensor in there. The ball has got to completely go over the line to score a goal. It can't just touch the line,
right.
You know. And same with the side of the field. The ball, like in football, if you put your foot on the line, you're out.
Right.
In soccer, the whole ball's got to go over the line before it's out. And the controversy, Peggy, I believe, is because it's taking them so long. Yes, they've got it, but the game stops and then somebody's got to review it. Yeah. And the football usually just flows. There's no timeout. It's why Americans don't like. It's not certainly the American sponsors don't like it, because there's not enough time
for commercials.
Yeah.
Not enough commercials.
The halftime show with Madonna and who else? The boy band group from Korea is very controversial. 15 minutes.
It take so long.
It's a 15-minute halftime show, and are you going to distract the players? Are you going to wreck the game?
Well, all professional sports to some extent are going through this trade-off between technology, which enables you to have more accurate calls about things, versus the delay it takes to actually use the technology to review the stuff. And you have that same thing in basketball. You have the same thing in football, not the same, but analogous in football, baseball, and basketball, which is you have technology which enables you to get a more accurate call, so that it's somewhat less dependent on the whims of the officials, or not the whims as much as their fallible, what they see. And but the trade-off is that it does delay things. And in soccer, it may be because of the nature of the traditionally how it's played, of basically no stop. Although there are stoppages in soccer, but they're very brief, and the intention is to get things going right away. The delay may be more noticeable in soccer than it is in other sports. Today, June 28th, as we're recording this, is the first day of the second round of the tournament. So it's already been cut down from 48 to 32 teams. Ian's been watching. Has anybody else been watching any World Cup?
I've not. I've been watching the commercials.
Most people
Instagram.
do listen to the podcast, so you do have to say out loud any answer.
I haven't seen anything. I've been in. My sister told me my sister invited us over for a U.S. watching party on Wednesday night at her house that I think odds are good we'll miss, but we might go. I mean, I'm not opposed to the kids seeing soccer. I want them to see it. So Americans watch, the rest of the world plays. That's kind of a thing right now. And so I'm not
Americans
watching.
Are still playing. They made it to the round of 32. They won their group. They are favored to win their round of 32 game match. Match, is that what it's called? Am I getting it?
Match,
yeah. Against Bosnia-Herzegovina, and then. If they win that match, they would then face the winner of the Belgium-Senegal match, which would be interesting. Belgium-US would be considered basically a very close. The odds would be very close as to who would win that. The US would be favored to beat Senegal. And the US has not made it to the quarters, which would be winning 2 more games to make it to the quarters, has not made it to the quarters except, I think, just one time in history.
That's right. It might have been the first World Cup as well that they got to the quarters.
Well, they may have made it to, actually, I'm sorry, I take that back. I think the U.S. actually made it to the semis in the first World Cup, but because of the circumstances then so long ago, people tend to discount that. In more modern times, they've only made, as far as they made it was to the quarters, and I think only once have they made it to the quarters. And of course, was it 8 years ago, the U.S. didn't even qualify for the World Cup, the Men's World Cup. So
It's sad. America's had the World Cup before, right?
In 1994. Does anybody remember that? That's the only other time the U.S. has had the World Cup. Of course, we should say, for clarity's sake, that this year the U.S. is actually co-hosting with Canada and Mexico. It's a 3-country co-host, which is, they've never had 3 countries co-host before. But I suspect that with the size of the field being increased, and it may get increased even more, that you may see more multi-country hosting going on.
Or continental hosting.
I don't know. I suppose it's possible. I think in Europe, you could definitely see where you could have multiple countries be hosts of a tournament. You could also, it's a way for smaller countries to be a host, and, by joining together. That's another option, of course. So I think that's probably...
How do you qualify to get in? You have to have a good season or something?
You have to pay off.
No, they have the soccer's divided up into 6, Asia, Europe, Africa, South America, North America, and Oceania. 6 different geographically organized federations. And I think based on some formula, which I think is based on past results, they each get a certain number of slots for the World Cup. And then you have to qualify within your geographical region.
So meaning,
except that I think that the host country automatically gets a bid to the World Cup.
So when you say results, meaning like the United States team played France previously and they won and now they get in, or because you're
no. Like, in other words, North America will be allotted X number of slots, which is not going to be as many as Europe. Typically, Europe gets the most number of slots, I think, traditionally allotted for the World Cup. And then the European teams have to compete to get one of those slots, to one of the set-aside European slots, just as the Asian teams, the African teams, the South American teams.
Compete? What do you mean compete?
They actually have matches. Like the U.S. would play Mexico and the U.S. would play Canada and whoever else.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Yeah, so there would be actual matches and you'd have to,
okay.
Whoever has the bit.
So then I have a question. This is like the Olympics, correct? That these players all work, they like play for the Chicago Fire or they play for the whatever, and then they take the best of those people and they make an American team.
Yeah, that is the idea.
So how do you do that and then go play Mexico and also play on your regular team? You just play a lot of soccer?
Ian, would you like to speak to this?
Exactly that. You just play a lot of soccer. There are, during the seasons, there are break weekends, which is an international weekend where the clubs don't play, but the international teams play. And in answer to your question, Peggy, how, it's like they've just played now in groups of 4, and they each played each other once. I think for the qualifiers, you're in groups of either 4 or 6, but you play each other twice, home and away. And so out of that, the top 2 qualify for the World Cup.
And in Europe, not only do they have the World Cup every 4 years, they have the Olympics, of course, which is every 4 years, 2 years apart from the World Cup. But they also have that European Cup championship, which is a big deal. They have a similar thing in North America. It's not nearly as big a deal because there isn't as many countries competing for it. But in Europe, that's a huge deal. And is that every other year or every year? What?
No, it's every 4 years, but it's the alternate 4 years.
Yeah,
it's in the
not,
middle of
it's
the
not
World
on the World
Cup.
Cup, and it's not on the same year. But that's a huge deal. The Cup Championship, is that what they call it in Europe? The Cup Championship.
I'll tell you how huge it was. That's when Shelly and I met watching one of those games. That's how huge it was. It's impacted my life greatly.
So in other words, it's the most important of all the soccer.
Exactly.
Yes.
Jim said it perfectly.
So as far as controversy goes, the other thing I heard, just a blip, so I'm not qualified to talk about anything, but I'm trying to contribute to this conversation minimally, is that there was something recently that, is it Iran who got annoyed about there was something was it in Seattle? Is there a match in Seattle? What am I talking about?
There was going to be a Seattle Pride match that was going to be a protest, and they didn't hold it. But it was, it was just going to highlight the hypocrisy. I mean, one of many horrible hypocrisies, but they didn't play it. They didn't do it. There's just, it's a protest. The other big protests are Iran is obviously the elephant in the parlor on this one, right? I mean, nothing like this has ever happened before. The host country is bombing one of the competitors actively during the World Cup. I mean, this is unprecedented, and I'm not sure what we should all do with it.
It's also true that Iran and I think it's 3 other countries are under currently U.S. travel restrictions. So although their players and coaching staff and so forth were allowed to come, most of their fans who might have wanted to come and see it were not.
Haiti, Iran, Ivory Coast, and Senegal.
Most of their fans were not. And
fans, African fans, have to pay $15,000 bond just to apply for a visa.
I thought they ultimately dropped that. That was
I don't know.
I think that actually got dropped. That was the original thing, but I think that got dropped. I'm not sure.
I mean, this guy, the new head of FIFA? What's his name? Infantino.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I thought Sepp Blatter was bad, right? With the old guy, this guy has just all he does is make deals with authoritarian regimes. Russia, MBS is hosting the next World Cup, and I mean it's in the U.S. It's just he says there is no World Cup if everybody can't attend, and clearly everybody can't attend. So it's like completely, it's a complete joke.
I think he meant all the teams can't attend, but yes,
whatever. Well, I thought the World Cup was supposed to be. It's a nonprofit in Switzerland. It's supposed to be inviting the world and including the world, and that ain't what's happening.
No, what drives the things like increasing the size of the field and so forth is clearly, look.
Well, money drives everything.
Money drives everything. On the other hand, the other side of that story is you have the marvelous thing of the country Capo Verde, which is a very, very small country. And they made it through the first round of the World Cup. And if the field hadn't been expanded, they probably wouldn't have even made it to the World Cup. So that's got to be tremendous for those people, for that team and for their fans and for that country. So, I mean, yes, money drives these decisions to expand the field. But on the other hand, it does give other people an opportunity who wouldn't otherwise have an opportunity to compete in the World Cup.
Yeah, so, Curacao is even smaller than there. So, and their end. Yeah. So, it was great. I when I was looking into this, I was looking into the Iran thing because I found the Iran thing so interesting. So I wondered where the Iranian, because I know quite a few Iranians in the U.S. and there are people of Iranian descent, and it is. I didn't know much about the kind of Iranian diaspora, and so I looked into it, and I didn't realize that there's another name for that. Have you guys ever heard of tarantulas?
It's not offensive, John, because I know some Iranian American people.
No. It's the largest concentration of Iranians outside of Iran is in L.A. And it's massive. And the vast majority of about 70% of them are not Muslim. They're all the other they're Jewish, Christians, Zoroastrian, Baha'i, but they're or nothing, right? Or nothing. But there's a huge population there. I mean, the Muslim Iranians who left Iran during the revolution are mostly in Europe, apparently, but in the U.S. it's a lot of others who escaped before the regime took over. But the initial game that Iran played was in LA, and it was a home game. it was a home game for them because it was mostly Iranians who probably don't call themselves Iranian. They prefer the term Persian, right? They want to harken back to the 13th century, and they were at the game. I mean, it's I just started. I went down this is one of the many rabbit holes I went down about the LA Times articles about the protests and just the games and the commentary by the people visiting. But I mean, it's impossible not to try to begin to understand what's going on. Like, how does this happen? What does it mean that there's, I don't know. What does it mean that the U.S. is at war with Iran when it's very weird?
Very weird.
Of course, the U.S. is technically not at war with Iran, but
right.
And in fact, we've signed a really great deal with Iran, is what I've heard.
Best ever. Really?
The best
deal ever. I mean, So, also, I think we should talk about a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about one of the spill-off benefits from having the World Cup, or the excitement about the World Cup. And by the way, since 1994, which is the first time the U.S. hosted, which is considered to be a crucial step in increasing U.S. interest in the World Cup, because since then the U.S. has been much more. The number of viewers of the World Cup in the U.S. has been significantly elevated. If you are in New York City and you are walking down the street in, say, Manhattan or Brooklyn at like 3:00 in the afternoon on a weekday, and you walk by a neighborhood bar, you are very likely to find that the neighborhood bar is overflowed with people at 3:00 in the afternoon, because they're there to watch whatever the world, and it doesn't necessarily mean it's the U.S. match. They're there to watch the World Cup match that's happening at 3:00 in the afternoon. So I think there's a lot of bar owners who love this.
That's true. Even in Grand Rapids, Michigan, we got invited to a bar yesterday to watch a game, and I just assumed it was the U.S. No, it wasn't. People
love an excuse for a party. I mean, it's just it's an excuse for a party. Let's be honest. Yes. I mean, I might go to my sister's and watch a World Cup game, and I have not watched a soccer game other than a little kids game and ever in my life. So yeah. Peg, you had a question.
I did, before we got off the topic of regimes and things like that. Is there anything like Nadia Comaneci? Anybody want to defect while they're here in the U.S.? Is that a thing anymore, or are those like any athlete trying to?
I'm guessing if people want to defect, they're going to wait 3 more years or so till the U.S. maybe being run in a different way. There might be U.S. people seeking to defect in the other direction.
Yeah, but they're here now. They won't be here in 3 years.
So at the March 2026 AFC Women Asians Cup in Australia, Iran's women's players refused to sing the Islamic Republic's anthem, and they tried to stay in Australia.
There you go.
But I haven't heard about it in the U.S. I did look into that a little bit, Peg, just to see if I didn't ask that question specifically when I was like reading the articles, but I did wonder the same thing. But I wonder if the nature of defection has changed, given that there isn't, in the Cold War, the U.S. has a law, like we absolutely let in all X, right? That's under Trump, that's wildly changed. So just because you could say you want to stay, you want to defect, but we're like, we don't want you. And then you're doubly screwed, because now you've just announced to the world, including the place you're going to be sent back to that you wanted to defect, you're dead. So this is probably not happening as much as it used to.
No, it probably doesn't. Well, first of all, you're right. The end of the Cold War changed a lot of that. Obviously, there are still places where their home regimes are repressive and people want to get away. But I would point out, Peg, that there are lots of opportunities, because even though the World Cup is every 4 years, the national teams do play what they call friendlies all the time against other countries, and they go to other countries to play them. So it's not just restricted to the World Cup being your only opportunity if you're trying to defect. So.
But remember, there were all those Iranian players who were killed in Iran prior to the World Cup during the protests. There were a couple famous ones. I can't remember the names. There were a bunch of them. There were a few of them that were quite famous players in Iran that were killed by the regime in Iran. And I love that I'm calling it the regime, but that is how I think about it, I guess. But
I think
they were killed.
Fair. I mean, whatever we might think about the U.S. current policy or non-policy toward Iran, it doesn't mean we necessarily are endorsing the current leadership of Iran by criticizing the current U.S. policy.
Right. So how do you love the people and hate the regime?
Well,
I don't know. That's what the needle you're trying to thread.
Look, you could say the same thing about China. You could say the same thing about Russia. You could say the same thing about other places in the world.
Yeah. They're all different arguments, but you could definitely say it about all of them. Well, I know I like Cuba and I like the people.
Well, I like the Cuban regime. There's, they haven't had an election in like 60-some years. So.
I know.
I'd like to bring our special guest back into the conversation by asking him a question. I am very impressed with the physicality of soccer, American soccer.
Just constant. American soccer? Or?
Well, you know what I mean. I was going to say football, but I don't mean. I didn't mean American soccer. I meant American. I didn't mean American football. Is what I'm trying to say. Football.
We should just always say anything we say with that's football is meaning soccer on this podcast
Yes, thank you.
today.
Okay.
Reciprocation.
So
Footy.
it's just constant. So it's just impresses me so much, and I feel like the most equivalent sport that I can think of to that is your sport, rugby. Would you agree?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the thing, American football produces monsters, massive people who, can go out and impact for a couple of minutes and then need a break. And in these games, there's no break. You just keep running. And so you can't carry that much body weight. And, your cardiovascular system. So you're more like, marathon runners than you are sprinters. And that's the difference between the games. I mean, soccer is 45 minutes each half. I think that's too long. Rugby's 40 minutes. What's American football?
It's theoretically 15-minute quarters, but there's a lot of stoppages, as we know.
But it takes 3 hours, yeah.
There is a theory which I sort of subscribe to, that one of the reasons for the commercial success of American football is that, and this is purely by accident, not by design, that the design of the game actually perfectly suits the rhythms of American commercial television, because there's a burst of action, then you can stop and you can review it and talk about it, and then there's another burst and you have a little pause, stop and talk about it, and it perfectly suits like the rest of television, the rest of American television, and that's why it sort of grew until the 1950s. Professional football, certainly in the United States, was certainly not the biggest sport, and possibly wasn't even one of the three biggest sports in the country. But then starting in the 50s, it began to grow. The popularity of professional football in the United States began to grow exponentially. And it's probably not a coincidence that the 1950s is when American television started, to grow. The first real year of commercial television where you had four active networks was 1948. So, there you have it.
Yeah,
but
for sure, all the American sports, all of them have timeouts.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's, interesting that in this World Cup, and the World Cup in the past has been played in some pretty hot countries, but here we are in America, and they've now introduced water breaks, which is another.
Although Europe is having, if I suspect they would have to have that if it was in Europe this year, because Europe is having some really intense heat right at the moment.
They played in Qatar, which is
right, but
hot.
they had to move the tournament to November, December because of that, right? Which was a lot of people were upset about that at the time.
Wasn't it indoors anyway?
No,
I think it must have been in some of them, right?
Some of them might have been indoor.
What is your point, Ian, about Americans and water breaks?
Americans are just wimps?
No.
Commercials.
I think, like Jim, it's been driven by money, being driven by the TV companies, just they can get more commercials in. It is the design is going that way for sure.
Yeah. I have a question for you about you have the arc of the sport for whatever number of years, decades. Are we watching better? Is soccer better now? Is the playing better now than it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago? Is it just the same and more, or is it actually improved?
The skill level and the fitness of the players has drastically improved, but also the quality of what we call them pitches, but the fields that they play on. I can remember, mud baths, playing soccer in mud baths. So people would be hitting the ball and it would get stuck in the mud when I was a kid. And now everything's like a billiard table. It's really smooth. The ground. So the quality of the game has definitely gone up. Shelly and I were looking this up. I don't know why we looked this up the other day, but the size of a soccer field is so much bigger than an American football team by tens of yards. It's a huge pitch.
Your point about the fitness of the players, that's another good point, because that is true largely in all professional sports. Is the intensive training regimen nowadays is much different than it was 20, 30, certainly 50, 60 years ago. And that also can explain why a player like Lionel Messi at the age of 38 or 39 is still a very effective player, because players spend all year round staying in shape, which wasn't always true in the past. Part of the reason they do that now is because they make a lot more money now than they used to. So the incentive to stay in shape and extend your career, the financial incentive is significant. It's not, so it used to be very common in all professional sports that players were finished by the time they were in their early 30s. Now, especially the best players, you'll see them hanging on even into their 40s. LeBron James is playing in his 40s. Don't be surprised if Messi, he may not make it to the next World Cup, but he plays for the Miami team in Major League Soccer, and don't be surprised if he's playing for them until he's 40. Who knows? Maybe he will make the next World Cup. We don't know.
Do they get tested for drugs like other sports too?
Well, they get tested for drugs. Whether it's like other sports is a whole other question, but.
Ian, and they play a lot, They, I mean, these soccer games, they're all playing at the weekend, and certainly in Europe, they play midweek games as well if they've qualified for the European Cup. So they're playing every 3 to 4 days. It's a lot.
Yeah,
it really is incredible.
What's the age? When do you age out of being a decent player?
Well,
is it like tennis?
Usually, in your early 30s you age out, but you get the exceptions like Messi. Of course, goalkeepers can go on for a long time. They can go into the 40s because
that's a bit, because they're not doing quite as much. It does require a certain. It doesn't mean that the goalkeepers don't require athletic skill, but they don't have to do as much running, which is the key thing,
So if 60, 70, 80% of young men want to be professional soccer players when they're growing up, what do they have to do to actually become a professional soccer player?
Be very good.
Yeah, in the UK, you get picked up in primary school. I mean, really young, below 10, they'll pick you up. And you go to the soccer club will take you through the academies, and it's cruel, because kids have these dreams. I'm now signed on for Manchester United, and you see all the friends being dropped off, and there's maybe a handful make it through. But they take them to these soccer schools. They actually do their education through
full school, like it's their complete school. It's the school they attend. Wow.
Yeah, and those kids are not allowed to play for any other kids' team. Because of injury risk, they just say, no, you're only playing for Manchester United now. This is it. And when we play, you play. But you can't go back and play with your friends, or you're in this. Yeah, it's really...
but it works.
Certainly players come through, but I'm sure there's a lot of distress for a lot of kids who think they're going to make it and then don't, and then they just...
Plus there's even a question that England is not the only place that does that. And of course you have in other sports, you do that like ice skating and gymnastics and things. You have that where you have these very early culling of the field. In tennis. There's even a question whether that is actually the best strategy to actually build the best teams. That there are some thoughts that not doing that and just letting the players come to the game at a late, because what happens, of course, is some players, and this is true in a lot of things, not just athletic pursuits, but a lot of people are very good when they're 10 years old, don't become better by the time they're 15. And there are people who aren't as good when they're 10, but they're better by the time they're 15. And John, you and I would see that in, debate. There were people who would be great high school debaters, and when they got to college, they weren't.
I see that in medical school.
I'm just saying.
Peggy, you had a question.
I'm just saying the point I'm making is that it's just a thing. It's not just athletics.
No, I don't think the single line to success is not necessarily the best model. I get it. Peg.
I'm surprising myself with all my things I want to say. So does anybody say, but it's this is a two-part thing, so don't answer in between, Jim. first is when Ian talks about how they play, I don't know if you said every day or 4 times a week or whatever it is, which is a lot with that amount of running and whatnot. I am going to go back to American football and say how they've got a week usually. They play Sunday to Sunday or whatever, Monday to Sunday. And even in tennis, when you look at something like Wimbledon or US Open or one of the big tournaments, they play basically every other day. That is, it seems like a lot and if you make it all the way to the finals, how can you not be exhausted? And I get it. You're in pristine shape, you get a massage afterward, all the things, you're in tip top shape, but it's just it seems, I'm impressed by American football, the precision. Who doesn't love an amazing catch or whatever, but it just doesn't seem as impressive as physically as some of these other sports. And then my second part is, does anybody think that the popularity of Ted Lasso helped Americans get more interested in soccer?
For sure. And there's that other program called Wrexham, right? Who's is it Ryan Reynolds or something?
Yes, Ryan Reynolds.
That's another amazing story, a fun story around a soccer team. But for sure, yeah, the amount of times that people came up to me, said, Ted Lasso, you're watching Ted Lasso?
Yeah.
Who wouldn't be watching soccer normally, but related it to me because of my coaching history.
Were you a Ted Lasso type coach? Were you a very positive influence?
Oh, yeah.
I can see that.
Yeah. We had so much fun. I'm telling you, it kept me young. Dealing with youngsters like that is so much fun around.
Totally.
It's also difficult with parents, man. They can spoil a good day out. They get so emotional about it.
My experience working with high school debaters is exactly the same, which is the debaters are 99% delightful, even when they're doing stupid stuff. Parents, I was very fortunate most of the time, the parents I dealt with, but there are some exceptions that make it much harder than it needs to be.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So Peggy and go ahead, Shelly.
No, you were going to go first.
You go first.
You go first, John, and then Shelly. Come on.
All right. So 2 things. One is to Ian's earlier point about kids being bummed out that they want to be professional soccer players and they're not getting it. I'm not sure, as a parent of a very kindergartner and younger, and seeing career day at a school, I'm not sure what is more depressing, seeing anywhere from 4 to 14-year-olds say they want to be a professional soccer player and mean it, or having a 4 or 4-year-old say they want to be a doctor or a lawyer because their parents have forced them to say it, and sadly having absorbed it and meaning it, because those are both incredibly depressing to me. they're equal, and maybe equally so. I'm not sure. I'd rather not have the disappointment on the something that I think the kid actually probably really wanted over the thing their parents have forced on them. But Peggy, your question about TV, I think, is very powerful and very important, because I feel like if there's, I read a couple articles in researching this about the generational divide in the World Cup and the generational divide in the perceptions of it. And I think historic and also why Chicago has no World Cup games, because Rahm Emanuel, when he was mayor, refused to sign, along with Minneapolis and a bunch of other cities, refused to sign the agreement that basically said FIFA gets all the money. And they refused to do it. So there are no games here or no matches here. And all of that, to me, the idea of a city wanting to attract World Cup games and the economic benefits of it. And for me, a lot of that has to do with kind of media, selling it in the media, and the media persuading people, whether it's Ted Lasso or whether it's just TV coverage in general. And I think that's a generational divide, because younger people just aren't watching TV the way older people are.
But they just watching
They're
soccer.
watching social media, and
they're watching soccer.
Well, right, but I'm saying that the attitudes going into the World Cup are generationally
I think
split,
you're overstating.
And a big part of that is the sell of TV.
I think, again, John, you're misunderstanding. First of all, social media now is commercially dominated. How do they make their money? They make their money by selling the data and by having ads. Secondly, people you're saying they're not watching the traditional networks. That's true, but they're streaming stuff.
That's what I'm talking about. No, I'm not saying. Yeah, no. Right. But there's far more streaming services and there's far more variety. And the young people are complaining about the streaming services and having to pay for all these different watching these things on the service.
So more and more streaming services are turning to commercials.
Advertising. My criticism isn't about advertising. It's about the single voices that were from the major networks as opposed to now the much more democratized voices that are on social media.
The middle-aged people are complaining about
I don't think that social media is particularly democratized, but yeah, go ahead.
Chicago is probably a bad example because they don't even have a football team anymore. It's come to Indiana now, so.
Nice.
I was born in Indiana.
Everybody
Shelly.
except Ian and I on this podcast was born in Indiana, if I recall correctly. Go ahead, Shelly.
That's right, Shelly.
It's your turn, Shell.
Yes. My comment was to counter or push back a little bit on Peg's Ted Lasso thing. I think soccer was already here in the U.S., particularly because, I mean, you played it as a kid and it's been in schools. I think Ted Lasso propelled the adult level of enthusiasm to it that probably didn't exist before. And adults might have been into it because they were on the field or the pitch because they had to bring their kids there or pick them up. But I do think there's a different kind of push from the Ted Lasso than propelling, oh, I saw Ted Lasso, now my 10-year-old has to play soccer. Like, I don't see that kind of thing. I think that was already present, in my opinion.
When I think that when Ian says coaching and you asked if he was a coach like Ted Lasso, I just picture Ian afterwards getting a pint.
Well, that's what coaching's about, right? Why do it otherwise? Yeah, it was just so fun. We used to play loud music and techno music in the dressing rooms. And I was a rugby player. I played soccer in primary school, but I never played it. I played rugby from high school onwards. And so, my soccer tactics were pretty poor, man. We were just, the quote to the team that still lives on today is, if in doubt, kick it out. If you don't want to do it, just kick it. Just kick it off the pitch and then we'll reorganize.
That's a good approach. Very good approach. My elementary school basketball coach's advice to me in 4th or 5th grade was, if you can't play like a team, at least look like a team. So he made us tuck our shirts in. It was like the lowest bar ever.
Okay, we're going to wrap up here in a couple of minutes. But before, I have to make a programming note, that when Peggy said earlier that she's surprised about how much she had to ask or talk about on this topic, isn't that essentially every podcast we ever do? Peggy's like, oh, do we have to do another one? And I don't know anything about that. And then she gets on and she has all these things to say and ask about, right? Wouldn't you agree with that, John and Shelly?
Peggy should be an author. She has opinions about everything.
I think Peggy went into this one and more of a positive attitude than I did this time, to be fair.
Okay. Well, that's unusual.
And contributed good and valid questions, better questions.
She
than I did. If we're
often does that, though.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's very kind, Shelly.
You are welcome.
I forgive you for pushing back on me.
Thank you. That's what I was going for.
No, Ian, you don't know that it's always, Peg is always like, we just did a podcast like a month ago. We have to do another one, blah, 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 blah. But then, of course, when she actually gets on the podcast, she invariably enjoys herself and asks all these questions. What to say? So. Some people, what can I say? Temperamental. All right. Thank you very much for your contribution, Ian. We couldn't have done this episode without you. And you should come visit us more often now that you're retired and have nothing else to do. John, would you like to do the outro today?
Sure. Everybody, thanks for listening. This was great. We had a great episode, and we hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. If you want to help us, we always are grateful for help, so please forward this to a friend. And we have a Patreon page, and we have a Buy Us a Coffee page, and we're on Blue Sky and on, believe it or not, Facebook, and we still have more traffic there than almost anywhere.
Social media companies.
Yeah, we're not on X anymore. I think I actively canceled the account. But anyway, we're around, and we would love to hear from you, and we'd love for you to be on the show. And Ian, please come back.
Yes.
Okay.
Cheers, and listen, join Patreon. Lots of good content on there.
Bye everybody. See ya.
Bye.